2019 was a great year for the Mac. The 16-inch MacBook Pro and the Mac Pro with Pro Display XDR, wow, that was a lot of pros, were really great additions to the lineup and were addressing issues that people have had for quite a number of years. However, it seems like 2020 is going to be potentially even better. Let's talk about it. This video is sponsored by Dashlane, the mobile and desktop app that gives you a shortcut for everything you do online, including saving passwords and credit card information safely. Dashlane makes the internet a one-click experience. So check out the link below to get a 30-day trial of Dashlane Premium with no credit card required to sign up. Okay, so what Macs can we expect to see updated in 2019? Whoop, it's 2020 now. So what Macs can we expect Apple to update in 2020? Well, first of all, we have to talk about the timeline because Apple doesn't generally do updates from December through February. Now, obviously, this year was an exception. We had the Mac Pro in December, but it's highly unlikely that we'll see any hardware at all of any sort, iOS, watchOS, anything, until March. March is usually when Apple has a couple of things to introduce. We've had things like the iPad, the entry-level iPad a couple of years ago. Back in 2015, we had the introduction of the original Retina MacBook and the early 2015 13-inch Retina MacBook Pro. So March is most likely when we're going to see the 2020 Mac updates start to roll out. I think the most likely candidate to start that off is the smaller MacBook Pro. Now, I have a separate video on this, so make sure to go check that out where I go into a lot more detail. But in essence, what we're talking about is bringing the scissor switch keyboard from the 16-inch down to the smaller form factor MacBook Pro. Now, you'll notice I'm saying smaller form factor and not 13-inch because we're not entirely sure what display size it's going to be. Now, Phil Schiller threw some cold water on the idea of a 14-inch MacBook Pro with a larger display. However, there is something that has literally just now occurred to me as I'm making this video. What if we still have a 13-inch MacBook Pro, but it's not 13.3 inches? It might be a little bit weird, but think about it this way. The 15.4-inch MacBook Pro became the 16-inch MacBook Pro. It wasn't a huge increase in display size, only 0.6 of an inch. If you were to apply that to, let's say, half an inch added to the 13-inch, it would still be a 13-inch MacBook Pro, but it would be 13.8 instead of 13.3. Either way, what we can definitely expect is a slight increase in thickness and the addition of the scissor switch keyboard, and I think that alone is a fantastic update. The existing 13-inch MacBook Pro is quite good as it is. It has quad-core i5s that are even able to cream older 15-inch Retina MacBook Pros from 2017 and before. It's kind of crazy. So we can definitely expect to see quad-core processors at the very least, probably 2 and 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports as we've had before, the touch bar with a dedicated escape key and the separated Touch ID button, all the same stuff that we've seen before. And the other thing that I think we could see is a doubling of the storage configuration, so it should start with 256, which I'll be honest was my main kind of only gripe with the 2019 13-inch MacBook Pro. That's really all I would have changed, is doubling that storage tier, and the base model is really solid. However, there is one more thing that has happened somewhat recently that I think could make the smaller MacBook Pro very, very interesting. Recently, Dell introduced the XPS 13, which comes with a Core i7-10710U. Yeah, that's right, that's the name of the processor. That's so bad. Which is a 6-core, 12-thread U-series CPU that turbos up to 4.7 gigahertz in a 13-inch thin and light Ultrabook. That's kind of bananas if you think about it, and I think it's very likely that we'll see that CPU or something similar make its way into the smaller MacBook Pro, especially with that extra cooling that you're going to get along with making your device thicker, as they did with the 16-inch. There's an extra, I think it's 12 watts of cooling compared to the 15-inch in this new 16-inch model. So if you apply that to the 13-inch, which already didn't really have any thermal constraints, there weren't any people complaining about the thermals, but if you improve that, cram a 6-core processor, better keyboard, more storage, whew, that is a solid machine, even if the screen stays exactly the same. Now, the next Mac that I'm really hoping is going to get an update is the iMac. And we'll talk about iMac and iMac Pro and how that's going to work out, but the iMac is in desperate need of a new design. The existing iMac design, the slimline, came out all the way back in 2012. It is almost an 8-year-old design, and it is completely unchanged. It's actually insane how old this iMac is. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not an unattractive design, but it is showing its age a little bit. The bezels are literally an inch thick, which is kind of ridiculous in 2020, and it could use a little bit of a modernizing touch. Also, please, can we get space gray on the standard iMac already? I mean, okay, it was great. iMac Pro, yay, nice, special. Can we please get it on the rest of it? Thank you, that would be great. Anyway, there are a couple of things that could make sense with a, at the very least, refreshed iMac. We're gonna see probably 10th generation processors, including a 10th gen Core i9. Not a huge improvement on that front. However, what's pretty much a shoo-in at this point is new graphics options across the board. The 21.5-inch 4K iMac follows the same general footprint as the graphics that you'll find in the upper tier MacBook Pros. So currently, you can get a Radeon Pro 555X and 560X in the 4K iMac. And then, of course, you can upgrade that on the higher-end model to a Vega 16 or a Vega 20. That mirrors the graphics options that we had on the old 15-inch MacBook Pro. So whatever update we get in 2020 will likely take the Radeon Pro 5300 and 5500M options from the 16-inch and apply those to the 4K iMac, and then the higher tier model will likely have an 8GB VRAM upgrade. Now that's very solid because the 4K iMac is actually pretty decent value. It comes in substantially less expensive than a MacBook Pro and offers desktop processors and those very similar, in fact identical graphics options. So that would definitely be a compelling option. And what I'm really hoping is that we'll get some sort of a freshened up design this year and finally ditch mechanical drives and go all SSD. Even if it starts with 256 gigabytes, whatever it is, I don't care. Please give us SSD as standard. Now, as far as a possible design change, I don't think we're going to see anything too major, but we could see a slimming of the bezels. And the main way that I think Apple would go about this would be by fitting a larger display. Here's a little taste test. Let this percolate in your mind a little bit. How about a 32-inch iMac? Not necessarily an XDR iMac, because let's be real, the Pro Display XDR is $6,000. If you attach an iMac to that, that's way too expensive. So we'll take the resolution, not necessarily the XDR-ness, but a 32-inch 6K display in an iMac. Woo! That would be tasty. I think that would be a really, really cool option. And logistically, the higher end, the 27 or I guess the 32-inch iMac in this hypothetical situation would probably follow in a similar footstep to the 4K. So new RDNA graphics, likely having a Radeon Pro 5700 and Radeon Pro 5700 XT option. That would be my most likely guess. And what's interesting about that is we would actually be competing pretty strongly with the iMac Pro at that point. When you consider that the higher end model with a Core i9, and this would probably go to a 10th gen Core i9 to be honest, that would already be beating out the 8-core iMac Pro. The current existing 2019 iMac, the 27 with the Core i9, is already right up there with the base model iMac Pro. So if you were to bump up to RDNA graphics and 10th gen i9s, you'd probably be beating out the base model iMac Pro, and if there is a redesign, you would get a more updated design. So at that point, we have a weird situation. The iMac Pro, which by the way is still a great machine, and you can buy them used, but it would be in a weird spot, especially on the base model, because why would you pay $5,000 for a base model iMac Pro when this hypothetical 32-inch or even a 27-inch iMac, if they don't change the design, would be more powerful and less expensive? Now, something that's potentially related and potentially unrelated is an economic daily report that came out pretty recently about, apparently, Apple is working on a $5,000 gaming Mac made for esports titles. Now, that's a weird thing to think about. Those are words that I never would have thought I would say, but here we are. Apparently, according to this less than trustworthy report, that's what's on the way, and it's apparently coming in WWDC. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think that's going to happen. Most people don't think that's going to happen. A gaming Mac for esports? What esports player is spending $5,000 on a Mac? However, this could tell you a couple of interesting things. Number one, the most interesting to me at least, is esports players love high refresh rates. Could we be seeing some sort of a Mac with a more than 60 hertz refresh rate? That I want. I want that. That would be awesome. Now, the report was unclear as to whether this was a laptop or a desktop. I highly doubt that we're going to see a laptop, so my money's on something like an iMac with a ProMotion display. That could be really cool. There's a very real chance that that report is just wrong in every way. It seems like we're definitely going to see some desktop updates at WWDC this year, and the only annoying thing about that is we gotta wait 6 months. However, you don't have to wait 6 months to try today's video sponsor, Dashlane, because you can do that right now. With Dashlane, the internet becomes a one-click autofill experience because it saves passwords, credit card information, and more securely so you can access it whenever you need to. Dashlane now has 2 tiers, a free version and a premium version. With the free version, you'll get password generation and storage on one device, and with premium, you can install Dashlane across as many devices as you have. And if you're me, that's, it's a lot. It's too many. Anyway, you can try out Dashlane Premium for free by checking out the link in the description below and signing up for a 30-day free trial with no credit card required to sign up and no obligation. Now, there are a couple of other odds and ends that I want to talk about as I wrap this video up. For one, the MacBook Air needs an update, mainly just to improve the keyboards. I think it would be absurd if Apple holds on to the existing MacBook Air as long as they did with the previous generation. Remember, the old aluminum bezels model was pretty much unchanged in terms of design from 2012 until 2018, which is kind of ridiculous. I don't see any reason why Apple wouldn't do that except for the fact that the MacBook Air is supposed to be thin and light, and adding that scissor switch keyboard would make it a little bit thicker. But that's no excuse. I want scissor switches on everything as soon as humanly possible. You understand me, Tim? You listening, Tim? I'm watching you. Now, there is one other thing that I think is, at this point, kind of a pipe dream, but holy moly, I wish it would happen. A Mac Mini Pro. That sounds tasty. Basically, the idea is the Mac Pro is great-ish. It's very expensive, it's very modular, it's very upgradable. What if you were to sort of take a lot of those attributes and scale it down a little bit to a prosumer market? So let's say, for the sake of argument, that this hypothetical Mac Mini Pro had HEDT processors, upgradable RAM, upgradable CPUs, let's say 2 PCIe lanes, where you could upgrade the graphics and maybe add some expansion. Yes, 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 yes. Sign me up. I would buy that in a heartbeat. Now, unfortunately, I think it's unlikely that we're going to see another Pro-focused, new design, new something or other coming out anytime soon, because Apple has already shown that, at least on their high-end stuff, on their high-end desktops, they like to take their time. The trash can was 2013, the iMac Pro 2017, and the Mac Pro 2019. So at the very least, I don't think we're going to see anything happening to a desktop without a display attached to it for at least another year. Maybe 2. Now, setting aside the pipe dream, we could very well see an updated Mac Mini. It was last updated in October 2018, and it was a very solid update. I'm thinking of finding one on eBay, making a video about it, see how it's holding up in the used market. Let me know if you'd like to see that in the comments below. But I could definitely see an upgraded Mac Mini coming this year with probably just newer generation processors. They're not a whole lot different. However, one thing that I've always wanted in the Mac Mini, and that they actually did deliver once in 2011 for 1 year, and it was not good, dedicated graphics. If we could get a SKU of the Mac Mini where you could option Radeon Pro 5300M graphics, I think a lot of people would buy that. Even without any sort of expansion opportunity and soldered storage, soldered CPUs, all that stuff. If you were to just add current gen MacBook Pro graphics to a Mac Mini, it would be a hit. So Tim, that's a little hint for you. That one's free, but the next one's gonna cost you. Overall, a lot to be excited about, a lot of rumors upcoming. Stay tuned, make sure you're subscribed if there's any updates that I have. Again, I don't think we're likely to see anything actually materialized until March, but that's not too far away, so it should be pretty exciting. And with that, I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching this video. As usual, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. What are you most excited about? As usual, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at LukeMiani, and please consider checking out my subreddit, which you'll find linked in the description below. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video.